Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's video. I'm here with Ken McCarthy, founder of Integrity by McCarthy, to have a short discussion ahead of our webinar together. Ken, thank you so much for being here today. On May 10th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Ken will be presenting a webinar with iSight called Hybrid Workplace Harassment. Are you protecting your employees and your company from hidden threats? Ahead of that webinar, I wanted to sit down with Ken and ask a few questions. So let's jump into it. Are you ready?
I'm ready, Victoria. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm so excited. First question. Why do you think hybrid work has fostered an environment where harassment is easier to get away with?
Victoria, I remember at the beginning days of the official declaration of the COVID-19 pandemic, and I remember some of my colleagues in the workplace harassment and violence world were actually very worried that they were going to go out of business because all of a sudden, when you had people no longer in a workplace together, where was the harassment going to come from? Sad to say, they were not right. Harassment, violence, those sorts of things, sadly, have continued in the workplace. And I've always said that people will find a way. So now we're transitioning from just working at home for many organizations to now this hybrid model. And I found an interesting stat. There's a number of good studies out there. I came across a very interesting stat. One was with the US-based Workplace Bullying Institute, and they launched a survey in 2021 where they discovered that, or where they found that 30% of workers who participated in their survey had identified as having been bullied in 2021. And that was an increase over since 2017 of about 11, 12%. What was interesting is they even ranked remote bullying at a higher rate. They said they found that 43% of workers said that they were bullied in a remote environment, 50%
Oh,
in meetings, the various meetings that we do through social media tools, and 9% by email. And I was actually surprised by that. Maybe not too surprised because I've always said that people will always find a way. And so, to answer this just a little bit further, um, what we've seen is, and I don't mean people are malicious, but there's always going to be something that somebody does in a workplace that's not appropriate. Hopefully, it's not ill-intended, but these things happen. There are now other tools and other opportunities, and there's a lack of oversight and in my mind sometimes good role models if you only part-time see people who can demonstrate good behavior in a workplace. If you're doing stuff behind a computer screen at home, you can get away with a few things, maybe become a little bit too complacent. We'll be part-time isolated, so some people will be back at the workplace a few days a week, they'll be back at home other times during the week. That isolation is tough on people, and I've seen situations where individuals are not invited to participate in various meetings and collaboration sort of events, intentionally or not, and that adds to the isolation, and it certainly adds to the feeling of being harassed or even having psychological violence committed against you, bullying, that sort of stuff. I know that some people, reading the news, a lot of organizations are trying to bring people back. A lot of employees are saying they don't want to come back full time to a workplace. So you're going to have a few people who are going to be disillusioned and frustrated and maybe believe that the rules don't necessarily apply to them. And they may actually get away or try to get away with some things that would not be appropriate in face to face environments, but they do it via video calls or whatnot. Not necessarily, intentionally, but, I'm frustrated with this workplace, and I may lash out. So those are some of the things that I've seen. Certainly in work that I've been doing recently, some of the studies suggest that yes, we are seeing that it does exist. It will exist in the workplace in the hybrid model. And as I said, people will always find a way. And without some of the controls or bystanders as witnesses, we may even see more of this stuff happening, especially if people are using their own devices. The employer has allowed them to
mhm.
use their own phones, devices, chats, other sorts of comments through social media, or just direct messaging. Inappropriate stuff does happen there. I've seen it, and I suspect it will continue to happen.
So, with that in mind, of people unfortunately always finding a way,
Yes.
what would you say are some of the key ways that workplaces can create a company culture that is positive for employees and also prevents incidents?
Thanks, Victoria. Yeah, you know what? We always defer to policies and training, and absolutely they have to start there, but you have to go a little bit further, and I'll explain. So certainly organizations have to recognize if they've not done so, have to actually update their policies in relation to this work environment. Again, we've all been thrown into this a couple of years ago. Everyone responded quite well. A lot of people suffered, but a lot of organizations responded well. Have they updated all their policies in terms of harassment prevention, violence prevention, how you use your social media tools, how you use your collaboration tools. So that's the first point is to make sure everything is updated. Beyond that, then get into actually training people. So there's always, check the box sort of training. And there's lots of organizations out there that will teach people about, making sure your policies are updated and harassment, violence prevention, those sorts of things. It has to go beyond that. So certainly you train your people on the policies, and then you train them on harassment, violence in the workplace, diversity, what these things really mean. And what I've seen missing, certainly in my career, I had 30 years in government, and then the last few years running my own business, is I haven't seen a lot of the senior leaders actually engaging in meaningful discussions with employees when there's that mandatory, diversity, equity, inclusion training or harassment training or whatnot. They need to be there. And it could be difficult for some organizations where, the senior leader or leaders are in one place and everyone else is elsewhere. But again, we have this wonderful technology that we're all using. These people have to be at the table. These people have to have a voice, and their staff need to see that they're interested in this. This is not just checking a box thing. And then meaningful conversations. I always have this vision of your frontline managers or leaders actually sitting down with their employees after everyone's done the training and they've checked the compliance box. Okay, well, what did that actually really mean? And that leader really needs to explain and convey to the people working with them why it's important. It's not just another training thing that people have to do. It's got to be important. And if it's not important to the leaders, it's not going to be important to the people in the organization. Hate to say everything starts at the top, but certainly it does. And that's critical. They have to walk the talk there.
Absolutely. Tone from the top is a
Yeah,
very popular phrase for a
for
reason,
sure.
and it's because it absolutely matters.
Yeah.
So let's say there's a company that hasn't really considered their company's culture having an effect before. What would you say the first steps that companies should take, like the very first steps that they should take when they think that remote harassment has taken place?
Yeah. Very first thing that companies need to do is the leaders in that organization need to do their jobs. It's very easy to dismiss something as maybe this individual was a little overly sensitive or what have you. They have
Mhm.
to do their jobs. They have to take it seriously because we've seen, you can speak with anyone in our HR world. You see little incidents that grow into huge issues because somebody didn't do their job, because someone didn't take
Mhm.
someone seriously. Maybe it didn't happen the way it was interpreted, but people have to very first, as soon as you hear an inkling of it, leaders need to take action and they need to promote to their staff as well that if something happens, people need to be comfortable coming forward. That is so difficult. That stat that I provided you from the Workplace Bullying Institute, they also spoke of a large percentage, probably 46% of people who had experienced bullying not wanting to come forward to raise the issue, which is
Mhm.
so unfortunate because these things turn people's lives upside down. I've seen it day in day out. So take action. Um, make sure that as a leader, the leader takes a report from the individual who is feeling like something has happened, or if they've heard about it, get all the information they can. Um, make the person who was on the receiving end of the alleged harassment, let them know that the organization has processes and policies in place and they're going to support them along the way. Likewise, for individuals who are accused, they're also in a bad spot there, and the organization needs to show them that they're going to be moving forward with processes to resolve the issue. Don't sit on it. Talk to
Mhm.
your human resources folks, your labor relations folks. They are the experts in this. Leaders need to look to them for advice and guidance, and demonstrate that they actually are going to take things seriously.
Absolutely. I think that that is very concise and fantastic advice. Do your job and take people seriously.
Well, that's right. And there's a piece, always the piece of accountability.
Yeah.
There's a number of harassment and violence regimes that don't look for that Shakespearean pound of flesh where somebody is
Right.
punished, but rather they look to what happened, root causes, and how to make the world a better place, how to make sure that that type of incident doesn't happen
Hmm.
again. Sometimes there will be accountability. Sometimes people will be terminated because of terribly egregious acts that they've committed. But again, a lot of regimes are now talking about it's corrective, and you have to demonstrate to your organization that you've taken it seriously. If discipline was warranted, then that's the way to go. And certainly
Hmm.
the corrective actions to make sure it doesn't happen again, you have to do that, and it has to be seen by everybody that you're doing that.
Absolutely. So let's say there's a circumstance where maybe in the past an organization hasn't really taken those situations seriously when people do feel brave enough to report. Can
Yes.
you tell me a little bit about how you would repair the employer and employee relationship as an organization's culture heals?
Yes, great. Thanks for that question, Victoria. That is one of the areas that is forgotten.
Yeah.
It's an afterthought. I think a lot of organizations believe that, after an incident has occurred and someone has come in to maybe help with mediation or conduct an investigation, that it's all done. But
Mhm.
as I said, I often say to my colleagues is people's lives are turned completely upside down, whether they're the principal party who committed or allegedly committed the act, or the principal party who raised the complaint, or the
Mhm.
responding party, victim, you name it, witnesses, they're in a horrible spot. So after it takes place, you've got to recognize that your organization can be devastated, even if you don't see it. There are people who are holding all sorts of stuff inside, even if you've done everything right. So organizations, leaders need to be transparent with their organizations in terms of what happened. Now, obviously, there's going to be privacy considerations in each and every jurisdiction,
Mhm.
certainly across North America. They have to be mindful of. But you've got to, or leaders need to tell people what happened and what they've learned from it, again, while respecting the privacy. Organizations will likely need to update their policies, update their training on harassment and violence in the workplace, look seriously at psychological and physical safety for the organization. These things turn people's lives upside down. You got to talk. You can't pretend that it happened, or well, maybe you can pretend that it didn't happen, or you can accept that it happened and just
Mhm.
assume someone else fixed it. No, the leaders actually have to have conversations with the folks after the fact. It could be the individual who was harassed, or it could be the individual who committed the harassment. You have to have ongoing check-ins with them moving forward in order to make sure that the organization heals. And the witnesses and bystanders, I would say they're in a terrible position because they've been drawn into something that they didn't want to be drawn into.
Mhm.
There's loyalties being questioned, certainly there. They're in a really difficult spot. So you have to have conversations with them as well, demonstrate what the organization has done, is doing, or has done to move forward. If you go silent, then you're going to lose the trust, and your organization will not move forward to healing.
Absolutely. I could not agree with you anymore. And I am really looking forward to having a longer conversation about
Yes.
this during our webinar on May 10th. So don't forget, if you enjoyed this conversation with Ken McCarthy and you want to talk more about it and, ask Ken questions about this, Eyesight and Ken McCarthy will be doing a webinar on May 10th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time called Hybrid Workplace Harassment. Are you protecting your employees and your company from hidden threats? Ken, thank you so much for sitting down and doing this interview with me today. I really appreciated it, and your insights are fantastic. I'm really looking forward to the webinar. Is there anything you want to say before we go?
No, just want to say appreciation to you, Victoria, for taking the time
Of
to
course.
chat with me today. Thank you so
Sounds
much.
good. All right. I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and hopefully, we will see you in the webinar.